What if Street Fighter wasn't about balance? What if the goal wasn't to have a fair fight, but to become so absurdly powerful that the game engine literally can't keep up with you? Welcome back, everyone. Today we're looking at something that feels like it was cooked up in a lab specifically to answer that question. It's called Polyfighter, and it's a new project coming out of Montreal from a studio called Heartloop Games. Now, usually when we talk about fighting games, we talk about frames, footsies, and perfect balance. But Polyfighter is doing something different. It calls itself a single-player roguelike fighting game. I spent the last week with the demo/beta build, whatever you want to call it, and frankly, it's one of the most refreshing takes on the genre I've seen in years. It's not trying to be the next EVO main stage title. It's trying to be the game where you build a character that breaks all the rules. So grab a drink, sit back, and let's talk about why this low-poly experiment might just be the most addictive single-player fighter since the old arcade era. Let's break down exactly how this works, because roguelike fighter can mean a lot of things. In Polyfighter, you aren't picking a character to master for the next 10 years. You're picking a starting archetype, a blank canvas. The loop is simple but brilliant. You enter a run and you fight a series of one-on-one duels. But here's the kicker. Every time you beat an opponent, you don't just move to the next stage, you learn from them. Think of it like Mega Man logic applied to a fighting game. If you beat a zoner who kept spamming fireballs at you, you can steal that fireball move. If you beat a grappler who tossed you around in the arena, you can take that command grab. In the demo, this system feels surprisingly fluid. You have your standard light, medium, and heavy attacks, but your special moves are modular. You're constantly swapping things out. The developers have explicitly stated that they want you to find wild, overpowered builds. And that design philosophy changes how you play. You're not just trying to survive the run, you're trying to craft a moveset that covers your weaknesses. If you start as a slow, heavy hitter, you might prioritize hunting down a speedy opponent just to steal their dash or their teleport, suddenly making your heavy hitter terrifyingly mobile. It solves the biggest problem with single-player fighting games, repetition. In a standard arcade ladder, you're just fighting the AI. Here, you are shopping for moves. The opponent isn't just an obstacle in the way, they are a walking loot box containing your next upgrade. Let's talk about what is actually in this demo build. Right now, we've got access to a handful of fighters that serve as our starting templates. The standouts for me were Hero, who is your classic Shoto archetype, fireballs, or in this case, ice balls, uppercuts, very Ryu-esque. He's the safe pick. But then you have Adrian, who is a total rushdown menace. He wants to be in your face, pressing buttons constantly. And then there's Verov. If you remember Bloody Roar from the PS1 era, you're going to love this guy. He's a grappler, but he has his beast transformation mechanic. It's rare to see transformation mechanics in modern fighters because they are a nightmare to balance. But again, since this is single player, the devs can just let it rock. Visually, the game is rocking this low poly aesthetic, hence the name Polyfighter. It reminds me a lot of Virtua Fighter 1 or early Tekken, but with much snappier modern animation. It's fairly crisp, albeit a little stiff. The hits have these comic book style impact frames that make the combat feel crunchy. However, again, because this is a beta, it's not perfect. The stage variety in the current build is a bit limited. You're going to see the same few arenas a lot. And while the controls are described as beginner friendly, and trust me they are, there is a bit of a learning curve in understanding which stolen moves synergize with your base stats. But the polish on the actual combat, it's there. The game feels very responsive. It doesn't feel like a floaty indie project. It feels like the people making this genuinely understand fighting game mechanics. Now we have to talk about the wild, overpowered builds promised in the marketing. This is where Polyfighter goes from neat idea to absolute craziness. In a multiplayer game like Street Fighter 6, if a character, let's say, has a full screen projectile and a teleport and a command grab, that character gets nerfed in a week. The community riots. In Polyfighter, that is the goal. During one of my runs in the beta, I started with a speed-based character, high mobility, low damage. A few fights in, I managed to take down a heavy grappler boss. I equipped his Gigaton Pile Driver special. So now I had a character who could dash across the screen in a split second and instantly transition into a heavy command grab that took off 40% of the enemy's health bar. It did feel illegal. It felt like I was cheating, and it was incredibly fun. The game encourages you to become a zoner grappler or a rushdown tank. You can mix and match archetypes that should never belong together. There's a roguelike progression system where you unlock perks between runs too. Some of these are passive buffs, more health, faster meter gain, but the real juice is in the move synergy. I haven't even found the ceiling yet. The developers claim there are thousands of build combinations, and even with the limited beta roster, I believe it. The AI in the later stages of a run gets aggressive, so you need these broken builds to survive. It becomes a game of who can cheat harder, you or the CPU. Of course, no preview is complete without a reality check. There are a few things I hope Heartloop Games tightens up before the full 1.0 release. First, the camera can get a little wonky when you're cornered, especially with the larger character models like Veroff. In a game where one missed block ends your run, visual clarity is king. Second, I want to see more meta progression variety. Right now, unlocking new moves feels great, but I'd love to see more cosmetic unlocks, or perhaps different starting loadouts, to encourage experimenting with movesets you usually avoid. And finally, the power stealing mechanic needs a clear UI. Sometimes it's hard to tell exactly what a move does just by its name on the reward screen. A little preview window showing the move in action before you choose to equip it would be a huge quality of life update. All in all, Polyfighter is scratching an itch I didn't know I had. We have so many roguelikes, card battlers, shooters, dungeon crawlers, but a roguelike fighting game, it definitely feels like a huge untapped territory. By removing the pressure of ranked multiplayer anxiety, it allows you to just enjoy the mechanics of a fighting game in a pure sandbox way. It celebrates the broken, the unbalanced, and the overpowered. If you are a fan of Street Fighter, Tekken, or even Slay the Spire, you need to keep an eye on this. The demo is a fantastic proof of concept, and if the full game delivers on the volume of content they're promising, this could be a sleeper hit of 2026. I'm going to be playing a lot more runs later this week, trying to find the absolute worst, most game-breaking combo possible, so make sure you're subscribed for that. Let me know in the comments, if you could combine any two fighting game characters into one broken mess, who would they be? I'm thinking Zangief's body with Dhalsim's limbs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next run.